What's up, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to the Pitlane Podcast, episode 111 today, to discuss some Formula One news ahead of the Bahrain Grand Prix, and then to give our predictions for that second race here. Joined by usual host, myself, Aarav, Callum, and Tom. And the biggest thing, really, we're going to talk about today is the title and the thumbnail of the podcast, or just the title if you're listening on audio only, is Ferrari. Did they have engine issues at the Australian Grand Prix? Was their engine a bit of a dud? Did they have to put some safety measures on to protect it? Because we heard some news also, actually, to be fair, in testing, about right at the end of testing, that they had to put some safety measures on that. And then Australia, it seems like they had to do the same thing, because there's been some interesting little clips and videos here of there on board of Vettel and Leclerc, where you could hear the engine notes go a little bit lower, or cut out, basically the rev cuts out earlier, going down the back straight after the high-speed chicane. And at the same point where Vettel very distinctly on the radio in the race said, what's wrong with our car? And Ferrari, I don't know. So what do you two make of it? Do you really believe a lot of that, or is it smoke and mirrors a little bit?
There is a little bit,
truth.
Yeah. There is truth. And Tom, do you want to? You can speak about it because you found it and really enlightened us, because it does answer a lot of questions about why Ferrari was so far off the pace.
Yes,
It does add up. Ferrari were the slowest in the speed traps all weekend long in Australia. So you could argue, especially in the race, they were really slow. You could argue there might be something there. Obviously, the counter argument, maybe why Haas, they were pretty good. How come they didn't get affected? Maybe they did. Maybe they could go faster, Haas. They just also had to turn the engine down. But maybe Ferrari really rely upon that high engine mode to really stay competitive. And maybe a party mode of such, and they didn't even touch it, because there was a few radio messages as well where Leclerc was told in Q3 to run like a party mode for one lap, and he didn't really reply. And he did a lap, and it turned out to not improve anyway. So it was like he was kind of reluctant to run it. And then during the race, there was kind of onboard shots with the Ferrari, always at the end of the straight or halfway down the straight. So the pit straight, the back straight, and also the one after the fast chicane where Sector 2 is. And on all of those straights, the RPM kept on dipping, like the engine would kind of cut out. So there seems to be something there where the engine kind of has an inconsistency about it. I mean, Vettel in the race even asked, a non-broadcast message was, Vettel just said engine update, and the team didn't even reply. So there's a rumor going around, maybe they didn't want to put him under pressure, or maybe make him worry too much, or make it sound too bad. But it definitely seems like maybe there could be an engine gremlin with Ferrari at the minute.
And that's worrying if it carries on for Bahrain, because there's videos obviously going around about Vettel's Bahrain lap from last year, because it was a really mega lap, and obviously the same thing happened last year where Ferrari weren't on pole at Melbourne, they were at Bahrain, and they went on to get multiple poles. But a striking thing from last year's pole lap at Bahrain was, you just look at how good that Ferrari is off every corner of the sheer acceleration power, the electrical deployment, and you got to wonder then, so if this is an issue, if it's an issue about the engine cutting out a little bit, not being able to use this party mode, the deployment's not as good, if they don't fix it and solve it for Bahrain, are they going to be looking even worse in a way, because that was such a big strength of theirs at Bahrain, and Bahrain anyway is a bit of a power acceleration circuit kind of.
I mean, their pace got hampered massively by these engine issues at a street circuit, let's not forget. And it's Albert Park, it's not a power-hungry circuit in the slightest, and it wasn't just Ferrari that were affected. Kimi Räikkönen was affected in Q3 by apparently some issues where he lost a bit of power. The Haas's at some point during the weekend as well. And apparently it is suggested that they were using a safe mode for pretty much the whole of the weekend from obviously the issues in pre-season testing. They've been advised to use this safe mode, and obviously they haven't been blowing up, so they're not in any sort of issue with reliability. But it's not got much of a bit of an oomph in a straight line, and obviously we are going to Bahrain where they're going to be seriously opened up. And I feel like with this stuff about obviously Vettel asking a question, not replying, and then Leclerc asking why Vettel's going so slowly, and the teams say that Vettel's saving himself for a fastest lap, which obviously never came. They were never going to go and push for a fastest lap. And they were being very sketchy and kind of beating around the bush. And I think Ferrari were trying to hide this fact. And I think they did quite well, to be fair. They did hide this engine issue. But obviously, eventually, people can put the dots together and realise that there is something quite seriously wrong with this engine, and they need to fix it quickly, because not only is it affecting all their customers and themselves, it's going to seriously put them behind in the championship, and they really need to get back on it. And they are going to be exposed now. I feel like they're going to go into Bahrain and they're going to go, right, okay, yes, we do have an issue with our engine. But it's not ideal for the start of the season. To say that Ferrari made such strides in recent years as well with their engine, and we thought that all of the manufacturers are pretty much on the same level now, Ferrari somehow have taken a massive leap back.
Yeah, it can't be all bad. I mean, there's obviously they still rocked up a pre-season and done what they did, so there's obviously a car there.
Well, the car itself looks strong. Like even Martin Brundle said on track at Melbourne, it still looked really strong. It was just slow.
Yeah, if you compare, there was a comparison uploaded on the F1 channel between Vettel's best lap in Q3 and Hamilton's, and if you look at them, it's not like through corners. Dare I say, the Ferrari looks better. He just kept on losing time on the straights. Very simple. It's one of them ones where there wasn't really like a night and day difference. You look at every sector, he lost the same amount of time through all three sectors consistently. It was just a case of, you could see on the straights, he just kept on losing time. There's also a counter argument being put forward saying, have Mercedes maybe found something as well with their engine potentially, but they're not, because obviously we don't have that reference point with Renault and Red Bull anymore because they're with Honda now, so you can't really use them as a third kind of reference point. But with Ferrari, I do think this was also, someone made a good point over the weekend on Twitter. I can't remember who it was, but someone said, for Binotto, as his first weekend, like you said, Carl, I think they did really well to kind of control it and keep it low-key, relatively low-key, because, they said, like, with Benega and Binotto coming in, this is, you could argue, was his first kind of test, quite a big test, really, to, see how he manages the situation, puts out the fire. And for me, they've done a pretty good job. And also, you have to wonder, going to Bahrain, like you said, there is still 2 weeks. Well, at the time, from Australia to Bahrain is 2 weeks. Yeah. The same amount of time between testing 1 and testing 2, where Mercedes kind of drastically improved. So you could argue maybe they can do something in 2 weeks' time, because a lot can happen. They've got a lot of money, a lot of resources. It's kind of what they done last year. But at Australia to Bahrain, they were miles behind in Australia last season. And then in Bahrain, they rocked up and got pole. So I think it's not a crisis just yet.
Yeah.
It could be.
I think it's on the teetering edge of it can go one way or the other now at Bahrain. And there have been murmurs, like a few little articles here and there at the end of this last week about Ferrari they're confident they can try and fix these, or at least not completely, but go towards a fix. So there might be a bit of padding basically for Bahrain. And we'll have to see about that in terms of also maybe the Mercedes doesn't perform as well at Bahrain compared to as it did Australia, because we've seen last year it was very much it was comfortable around Australia, and then Bahrain wasn't as much, so we'll see. And then you've got to factor in Red Bull, because Red Bull have always threatened a little bit at Bahrain, but they've always been held back by engine, the pure engine power, having to do a lot of compromising. And what was it? I think the most recent year I can remember was like 2015 and 16, where they took off like big chunks of the cascade element stuff on their front wing at Bahrain to try and counteract the lack of power. So now, with the Honda engine, we saw it was pretty damn good around Australia, but of course now that throws in how good was it versus Vettel, if he was having an issue with Verstappen. People would point that in the comments below, but I still think Honda is still have improved quite a fair bit. How much so might be masked by that Ferrari issue.
It's an improvement, but obviously then it's weird because all three of the top teams are kind of pointing fingers to try and suggest things. So obviously Red Bull were pointing their fingers at obviously them overtaking Ferrari and going, look how good the Honda is. But then Ferrari have silently just gone, our engine's a bit...
But then, like Merck and Hamilton are very confident that they really do feel that Red Bull, the way that Max was able to close up to Hamilton, obviously he was going to always find it hard to overtake because Melbourne's Melbourne, but the way he closed up and was keeping up with Hamilton on every straight, Merck feel Red Bull could be, right now, if Ferrari don't improve exponentially, Red Bull will be the ones that force them a little bit and kind of push them to keep ploughing on with the season. So that was going to be... interesting. Bahrain is definitely... We've said it so many times, it's going to be interesting, but it really is going to just be...
I love Bahrain.
It gives a better reference of where everything is, because Australia, you can never... Australia's not accurate.
There's
no track is like Australia. Bahrain is much more like Spain, like China, just long straights,
We've got that, corners. And there's just so many question marks as well. More question marks than there ever has been, really. Last year, there was the question mark of Ferrari. That was the only real big one. But now we've got Red Bull thrown into the mix, because this time last year, we kind of knew that, Red Bull's still going to be third. But now there's a question of, okay, hang on.
as well. And Mercedes, for me.
What, going to Bahrain from this year?
Yeah, because they almost seem shocked how good they were at Australia. And I think you can play that card of, we didn't think it was going to be that quick. But I do think there was a genuine element of like, oh, wow, we were really quick at Australia. I do think they were a little bit surprised. So I do think come Bahrain like last season, it could also we'll find out
Perhaps,
to see if they're as quick. I think personally.
Yeah, true. And Hamilton obviously did kind of explain through his race that he had to cool the tyres to keep them kind of in check, and that's what he did as soon as he came out covering the Ferrari car. So we don't know, and Melbourne's very tough to tell for the tyres. So Bahrain would be a good first test, I guess, because Merck obviously did have. Well, historically they've had tyre issues, so we'll see how they cope with them
compared to other teams around them. Yeah, but I don't know. We need to see how it's very exciting. To be fair, I mean, especially in recent years, I've really enjoyed Bahrain. It's always been one of those circuits where you have, I mean, incredible racing last year. Let's remember when obviously Hamilton and Verstappen were trying to come through the field, and it is a solid benchmark, but it throws into question. We've got lots of questions to ask going into this weekend, not only about top 3 teams, but also about the drivers as well, because suddenly now, you know what the media is like. The moment he's beating Hamilton, everyone's gone, oh, no longer a wingman, no longer. But Hamilton's now washed, and it flips from side to side constantly. We've got that to answer. And then we've got the midfield as well.
Well, the midfield, oh my God.
Yeah. I was going to say, I really want to see how McLaren go on. For me, that's the biggest test, because that would be a real test to see, compared to last year for McLaren, if they have taken a step forward. Was Lando Norris's quali a fluke, or do they genuinely have pace to crack into Q3s? For me, that's the biggest midfield question, because I think we know Alfa are quick. Again, this comes down to the engine, really. Haas as well. So for me, it's about McLaren and Renault, mainly McLaren, because I want to see them improve, really, personally.
Well, I think for me, it'll be just a case of also how Renault respond to the race they had with Ricciardo. How well does he bounce back?
True.
And how well can he do against Hulkenberg? Because obviously we didn't really see that in the first go. And
he needs to build himself up some momentum.
Yes,
that's what he needs.
And like you said, Bahrain's always been a great place to race. We've seen a lot of teammate battles at Bahrain, so that could be kind of tasty to see Renault v Renault sparking away under the floodlights. So, and the midfield is so close at Australia that it has been close at Bahrain as well. Very, very close stuff. And last year we had that crazy quali with the Toro Rossos as well.
Will they be back again, Toro Rosso?
Yeah, who knows?
But also as well, what I remember reading in the news a couple of days ago, that Alpha are bringing another huge update. The update that failed during testing.
Yeah.
So they've gone back to the drawing board. Because obviously, not only there's been loads of graphics going around. Everyone's now comparing the last 3 years and how everyone's improved or not improved in terms of Williams, for example. But obviously, there's all this riding on the back of Alpha that they've done such a good job of taking huge strides forward from 2017 to 2018 to 2019. But also with this update now coming in, and whatever was wrong with the update, I think they say that they're confident that it will work in Bahrain. They feel like they've now run some more numbers, and they've got the results more close to how they'd like. So that's extremely exciting. Bearing in mind, Raikkonen's finished in a solid 8th place in Australia. Where will they be? That's what I'm. And are they going to now suddenly be hampered by a Ferrari, and then we're going to have an issue with? They're going to need a new engine because
we'll see.
They're being hampered at the moment.
Yeah, that graphic is really interesting. Actually, I've got it up right here. So 2017, Sauber as it was 4 seconds off the fastest time. 2018, 3.3 off, and then 2019, 1.8 off. Massively.
And that masks as well. But that's masked by the fact that Mercedes, who obviously were the fastest team in Australia for the last 3 years, have also taken steps forwards. So they've made strides with the front of the field, and more so.
Yeah,
so that's why it's so incredible.
A midfield team has to outdevelop the top team in order to close the gap, which on paper sounds incredible.
Ridiculous.
It's just
really
crazy.
hard. So fair play, but also I think the stat there is also how much Sauber did improve over last season alone. From 3.3 in Australia to the end of the season, where they were regularly 6th place. So
definitely,
that says a lot.
Yeah, the midfield is going to be uber tight again, and it's going to be hard to really predict who will be in the mix. Because like Tom said, Toro Rosso, they just want to rock up again because they had a kind of okay-ish, mediocre-ish sort of average weekend, I guess.
Haas
they just turn up.
Australia. Again, maybe.
Yeah, like we said, Haas could be up and down again. So will they be down at Bahrain or not? That remains to be seen. And then, like we said, the other team, Racing Point as well. Racing Point have promised updates every race. So will they bring updates again to Bahrain straight away? And will they see an uptick?
You can't really sweep them under the carpet, can you? Because they could become a big thing in F1 with all this backing they've got. They could potentially do a Sauber from last season and really close the gap.
And they've had a solid start. I mean, they never a terrible one, they never a great one, but they had a solid start. Even like the Racing Point, I think I can't remember his name, but the boss was like, give Lance Stroll the credit there. He had a very good drive, a mature drive there. I think there's more to come from him in terms of what he can do compared to what others think of him in the media. And I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, fair play. I think we've all made jokes about him being a bit of a pay driver here and there, but I'm all fair.
He's not slow, not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like for me, it's like Ericsson. Kind of Ericsson grew into a good role of like actually showing what he was made of. So if he wants to show it, go ahead, Stroll. Please show it. And I think the support in general respects any driver who kind of shows what he's made of after any kind of backlash or whatever like that. So it could be really exciting. Then obviously, we have Williams, who, they're probably not going to be improving that much at
until
Bahrain.
Spain, forget about it. At the very earliest.
So
they set themselves.
Hopefully, Kubica just doesn't lose a bit of his front wing, this time. Maybe that will be a positive step forward, maybe for the weekend. Yeah. But
also, just a little bit of housekeeping as well from Australia. We had the issue of some drivers not being able to see the lights, the starting lights, which obviously we thought was going to be an issue in 2018, but apparently it wasn't. But with the new higher rear wings, I've just read something here that they are
changing
trying to line up to fix it, to bring in some sort of solution, because apparently Robert Kubica was slightly pooing himself on the grid when he couldn't see the start lights, which, I mean, I know it's been a while, it's been 8 years since he's been on a grid, which he probably would have been slightly pooing himself anyway. Yeah. But I think the FIA are wanting to come up with some sort of solution. Yeah. God knows. I honestly reckon one day they are going to have it just in the cockpit.
Yeah, somehow.
Surely one day, because they've got everything else in the cockpit. Yeah. Obviously they're going to keep the lights on the gantry full.
Have it like the F1 game. It virtually comes up.
Yeah.
Just like in the air, floats. It's like Mario Kart. It's like Mario Kart. The cloud, the guy in the cloud.
Yeah, it's like. Can you remember the old F1 games where it was literally just you rev the car and then the moment the lights go out, it would naturally go anyway. Like you wouldn't have to drop the clutch or anything. Yeah. It'd be automatic clutch. But surely they probably will eventually, because I mean they've got all the flags in the cars, or the virtual safety car and stuff that's on the dashboard. They've got everything, absolutely everything apart from the start lights. I mean, it probably will make more sense for them to look down, but then is that slightly unsafe for them to be looking down?
Maybe a little bit.
Releasing the clutch, and
but
then
I mean, as soon as
there's someone on the track.
As soon as you release the clutch, you'd hope you just look up and sort of go, okay, cool, now what's going on? Yeah. So I don't know. It's definitely one of the weird. It's such an F1 sort of thing. Like, the new rear wings are blocking the start
But it's funny though, because obviously it was used last season as just an excuse, or the last season against the Halo.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of got brushed under the carpet because everyone was like, no, it's fine. It's just not an issue. But yeah, it just made me laugh, because I think as well, do you know how they have another set of lights further back for like
the second half
backwards,
sort of thing,
and those were introduced because of the 2009 rear wings. I read quite a while ago actually. So, but then they weren't needed because of the fact that in 2017 they got lowered again.
So what you're saying is that the high wings are useless.
Yeah, clearly they're not needed in the slightest.
That's what we're saying.
No, they should just take the Formula E approach and just have it as a V.
Have a bat wing.
Yeah, literally
that would remove a lot of issues, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, but they'll put FIA like they'll get some sort of quick solution in somehow. And we'll see if it pays off. Otherwise,
rear wings
if you see Robert
Kubica, 5 holes in the DRS flap, 5 holes for the lights to shine through.
No, it's now the 10 red lights, just to make sure, like really wide.
Double check.
It goes across the whole gantry. But I think that would work. Why not?
10 red lights. I think.
The thing is, you can't move the lights, because you could say, for example, put the 5 red lights on top of the, like normally they're beneath the sponsor board. You can maybe say put them on top, but then maybe the driver from the first 2 rows of the grid might be able to see because they're too high. Like you can't.
The pole sitter would literally be looking up into the sky as it releases.
Exactly.
So you've still got the same issue.
I'd be curious to see what would happen. I don't know how you get around that pretty much.
These are all the nuances that F1 have to deal with.
It's such an F1 thing though, because they obviously they bring it up back when the Halo was introduced, but then now obviously they just didn't think about it, and no one at the back of the grid thought, wait,
hang on.
And then they only realised that when they pulled up on the grid, which was just quite. It is a very, as Aarav says, it's a very F1 type issue that no one really brings up. But also just predicting, we've got to predict Bahrain, right?
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know.
That's the beauty of it.
That's
what we do it for.
I think that's the bit like the last few years. I think our predictions when we first started the podcast were kind of almost we could get some spot on, and then as we've done the episodes, they've gone worse and worse. Not because we've got worse at predicting it. The sport's becoming more predictable, more unpredictable.
Let's not talk about our Australia predictions. You know,
I don't even know what I predicted for Australia.
I think we all put Vettel for the double.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I think we all.
But we're based off pre-season. No one knew until we turned up to Friday. Like, oh, hang on.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's another kind of toss of the coin. What are you going to get at Bahrain?
Exactly. Yeah. So. Speaking of predictions, I think we just get into it, really, because there's not a lot of really ingraining other F1 news to really go through. But let us know in the comments below what you thought about the whole Ferrari kind of engine thing. How much do you kind of believe into it? But let's do predictions then. I think we'll start off simple, just the pole position. Who we reckon that will get? That's still a lottery, really.
It doesn't make it any easier just because you said simple.
Simple. Okay, look, mate. Just give us one name.
Still toss a coin.
Just give us one name. All right.
Lewis Hamilton.
All right. Cal's going Hamilton.
I'll go Vettel. They did it last year. They turned it around from Australia in 2 weeks, so I reckon they can do it again.
I'm going to say Valtteri Bottas.
I nearly said
Porridge
Bottas.
Boss.
I'm going to say Bottas because when was it? 2017 he did the job, and it was a pretty damn good lap from Bottas then. I reckon he'll find some inspiration from that 2017 lap and bang it in on pole.
To be fair, that sort of circuit does suit Bottas. It is a circuit that, I mean, it's one of those circuits where it has got 90 degrees. I think it is a Bottas type circuit. So
a little bit less of a circuit where you kind of attack it with your front end. You kind of let the car do its thing. You have to try kind of coast it through and just make sure you get your braking right and get the acceleration is the more one. Whereas Hamilton obviously always loves to kind of attack a circuit with vigour. So I guess I could agree with that. So pole then, we're done. Let's then go for the top 5 then after that pole position time. Who wants to go first? Cal, Tom. Cal, you don't sound like you're very ready, Cal. Tom, go. Cal's not ready.
We're back after this short break. Just putting that out there.
Right, I'll go then. Top 5. Okay, I said Bottas pole. I'm going to go then. Hamilton wins it. I'm going to go Verstappen second place. Bottas third. Vettel fourth. Gasly fifth.
Wow. So Ferrari having a massive shitter then for you.
Yeah, again, I don't think they solve their issues a lot.
Okay, I'll go with. I'll probably let's say Hamilton converts it because I'm silently confident in Mercedes. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm silently because I feel like they have been.
I mean, there's a lot against them.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to back up on that point. So I mean.
Yeah, I'll go Hamilton, and then a Verstappen, then a Bottas, Leclerc, Vettel.
Okay.
I'm gonna go 2 out of 2. For the Porridge Boss.
Okay.
Vettel second, because I had him for pole.
Right.
Verstappen third.
Ooh. Interesting.
Hamilton fourth.
Okay.
And Leclerc fifth.
Okay, intriguing. It's like we said, it's just too hard. There's too many drivers that could fit into 5, basically.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, you've got to somehow fit 6 into 5 anyway, but then you've got to somehow.
So that's why I've just had to stick it of like, Ferrari will have another bad, so that's why I can get.
I've said Mercedes, but I wouldn't be surprised if Red Bull won this weekend. I would not be surprised.
I would not either, because the way Merc have talked about Red Bull, the way Red Bull have talked about themselves, and just Bahrain, like I said, knowing that Red Bull have had to compromise a lot in previous years at Bahrain.
I also would be surprised if they won. I would be, because it feels very early to say it's only the second race with Honda.
You've got to remember, though, in Australia, like, Verstappen was a little bit throttled by Vettel in front of him in that first stint, and even when they stopped at different points. Obviously, Vettel stopped a lot earlier than Verstappen. Verstappen stopped a lot later, so he did fly past him anyway. And then he did cruise up to the back of Hamilton. And I do think if it was the same sort of scenario where he was cruising up to the back of Hamilton,
I think
and
Bahrain
it was a Bahrain circuit where there's 3 DRS zones and it's really easy to get by someone, I do think Verstappen would have overtaken him. And I do think he would have gone like, for example, like in, I don't know,
Well, it's almost like Bahrain last year, though, when like cars were like being able to make. If you were confident enough, you could make that big dive into turn 1.
Yeah.
If that was the same scenario happened, Verstappen could do that.
Yeah, like in Brazil. in Brazil last year when Verstappen was just powering through, that we knew that Red Bull had set up their car up for the race, and Verstappen was just powering through the top 5 and then easily got himself into the lead. I do feel like it could have been that sort of scenario, and obviously the car's not too different from the end of last season, and
I think we're really into it too much. I don't think he never had the pace to win at Australia. I think Hamilton was said in the radio, Verstappen was never a threat. He was just keeping a gap.
But I feel like, of course, he would say that, I think.
No, but I believe him. If you look at it, I don't think ever radio messages say a lot the way they're communicated. You can tell. They sounded very calm. Like they were like, we're good.
I'm not complete, because Hamilton, there was radio saying at the end that Hamilton was wanting to get extra power to go for the fastest lap because he wanted that extra point, and he couldn't do it at all. He didn't have enough pace in the car, whereas Bottas did. So I think he was struggling
at the time,
more.
They didn't know his car was damaged. They found it after the race, which is maybe...
Well, cool. Yeah, that could factor in, but I don't think a little bit of floor damage is going to factor into that much pace loss for a fast lap. So
I don't think so either, but a lot of people seem to make a big thing out of it. So
yeah, true. That's true.
Welcome to Formula One fans.
Welcome to F1 fans.
Yeah. Also, did anyone watch, just to round out this podcast? Did anyone watch the Mercedes debrief of the Australian Grand Prix? They literally started off the video with James Vowles going, "Fans, it's James."
Oh my god!
I actually, and you know what? Whoever runs the Mercedes marketing team, they just need a raise. Just because, as sad as it sounds, and as annoying as it is now, the fact that they got James Vowles, the guy who actually said it, to start off a video with it was...
They know how to lean into the cheesiness, so fair play.
They do well. They did. I had to rewind it. I was like, what did he just say?
It's like whenever the football accounts on Twitter do a really good tweet, and you're like, give the admin a raise. It's like give the admin a raise who put that together for Mercedes.
Give that man a W.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I just thought, you've got to praise the social media teams of all the F1 teams, to be honest, because they do know how to have a good laugh. But
even Ferrari this year a little bit more involved this year.
Well, because they got the new I can't remember her name, but she came from McLaren. True. She used to do the Alonso's PR, but now she's the head of Ferrari's entire communications.
Oh, what's her name? I know you're on about as well. I can't remember what her name is. I can think of her face, but she was always there during Alonso's media days and stuff.
She was at McLaren for aages. She was back when Button and Hamilton were there as a pairing. So she's at McLaren for a long while.
Around,
so that's 9 years.
McLaren know how to. They're good at marketing, so she'll be good on the. She'll be well trained, put it that way.
Yeah, on the Ferrari front.
McLaren team.
Yeah, and it shows, because Ferrari definitely have been a bit more kind of play around, I guess, on Twitter is the wording.
Yeah.
Just a bit better, basically, with also like graphics and stuff like that for with the new race weekend and whatnot. So yeah, it has been a lot better.
Their graphics are sharp this week. I love their graphics this year. They're really nice.
Yeah, it's good. No, I've always enjoyed that. I think they started in 2017, wasn't it? Where they did every race weekend. They have that new artist that creates a little poster thing for the weekend. I always really enjoy seeing what the unique artist comes up with. It's good. It's good to see Ferrari come into the 21st century a little bit with that kind of stuff when it comes to F1 stuff. Compared to
much as F1 was stuck in the past, fucking hell, Ferrari.
Yeah, do you remember back when we started the podcast, 2016, when it was all about Ferrari not saying anything in the media ever at all?
Yeah.
And it was all this mind games, and now it's just so much better. They're just an actual team. They're actual people behind the accounts talking. It's just a lot better.
We just need them in esports now, and then we're good to go.
Yeah.
We'll
see
not
about
far
that,
off, aren't they? Aren't they wanting to do esports sometime soon?
There's little murmurings that it looks like they might be able to enter. We'll see. We'll have to really just wait and see, because I think it's a waiting game.
It's not very marketable. When obviously the whole world is looking, well, most of the world is looking at the official F1 esports, and they go, where are the Ferraris?
Yeah, that, and also, it's Mercedes winning an esports as well. Again, it's just it'd be better for the entire thing if there was some other people in play, but we'll have to wait and see. But I think that's pretty much all we can talk about, really, ahead of the Bahrain Grand Prix. So we've got our predictions. Let us know yours in the comments below, guys, and we'll be back with an instant race reaction for the Bahrain Grand Prix on Sunday, and then the following in-depth review on the Tuesday afterwards. So do get subscribed for this channel for both of those videos. If you're on around here as well, you can check us all out on Twitter. Links on the script, or the handles on the description. And like I mentioned right at the start there, if you want to check us out on audio and listen to this on the go, then you can. SoundCloud, iTunes, and also now Spotify. And if you do look like what we do around here, you can support us directly either via Patreon or GT Omega by using the code PitlaneF1. Links both in the description. But until then, guys, hopefully it's a good Bahrain Grand Prix, and hopefully we have a lot to chat about on the instant race reaction. But till then, guys, hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.